The Referral Navigator Limited Series Podcast.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Tockman, the Referral Navigator. Welcome to the Referral Navigator Limited Series Podcast. Today, we're here with Thea, and we're talking about, as we always do, leadership when it comes to referrals. How do you, as a leader, lead your team to be better at generating referrals from your own clients? How do you help your team to be better at generating referrals from other professionals? And we'll talk about tools and systems and training and accountability and all that good stuff here today with Thea. Hi, Thea. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
My pleasure. Why don't you start with the pronunciation of your name and your company and just a 30-second about what your company does, so there's some context for everybody about how you lead people within your team and around the country to be better at generating referrals.
Yeah. So my name's Thea Otterstad, and I work for USI Insurance Services. And my role here is I am the regional practice leader for our personal risk division. And so I'm dealing with individuals like yourself across the country and within our region and in our office to write their personal lines insurance. And so what I do is I manage a team for state region of Minnesota, Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota. And so all those producers within those states report up through me, and we do a lot of training on how to ask for a referral. We've got certain tools and resources that we use across the country as well.
Thanks. That's a great introduction. And then just for those who maybe are not as clear, maybe you could give us the personal lines. What types of policies are we talking about implementing?
Yeah, so we're talking about the homes you own, the vehicles you drive, the people you interact with, your lifestyle, right? Your personal liability. We also go into, we do a lot of cyber nowadays, so personal cyber policies. And then we also, there's a little bit of crossover on personal and commercial with farms and large ranches. So we also do stuff like that. And we go all the way up to private yachts and personal aircrafts. And if it's owned by you personally, we have a solution to cover it for you.
Thanks so much. Our podcast is not about what makes somebody referable. Our podcast is about how do you lead people to go get those referrals as a leader. In your mind, what makes one person on your team? Let's say one of the people on your team is John Doe, and you're leading John. He's an employee of your firm, USI Insurance Services. What makes John referable in your mind? What makes it so that a client or another professional can feel comfortable to refer to him?
Well, in today's world, we've had a lot of catastrophic losses throughout the country the last few years. A lot of things have been flipped upside down the last 4 years in a lot of different aspects of individuals' lives. But most importantly, the insurability of a client and then the carriers as well. And so for me, what makes somebody referable is making sure that they have the technical ability and the expertise to be able to provide solutions to the clients. Just because you've placed one personal risk policy doesn't mean you've placed them all. Like each individual is different. So one thing that I always like to tell my producers when we bring them on and we hire them is to choose something you want to become an expert in, because we've got enough jacks of all trades, masters of none. And we don't need any more of that, right? Especially in our divisions. And right now, one of the hottest items out there is personal cyber. We don't have enough experts in that industry. So if you can differentiate yourself from a captive agent down the road because you know how to articulate yourself a little bit better and are more technical on the actual coverage lines, that is going to then in return produce a lot more referrals to you.
That sounds great. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of our podcast and the purpose of it, which is we really want to hear from you about how to lead people, how to train people, coach them, hold them accountable, tools to give them so that they can become better at generating referrals for themselves. You mentioned you have your own team, and then I think you said you train people across the country. Tell us about the number of people you train and what's that program internally, and then let's get into it. What do you train them on?
Well, we have a series of live learning courses that we do through WebEx, and that's all about how do you utilize the tools and resources that USI provides to each producer? How do you effectively articulate our value proposition? How do you talk about USI as a whole? Like, we are not just personal risk, we are small commercial, middle market commercial, employee benefits, retirement and consulting services. We have a lot of different divisions of USI here. And what we want is somebody to be able to articulate that as a whole. So that's one of the courses that I've coached before. And then one of the other ones is simple as how do you track these? Like, you have to be able to track your referrals. So what sort of systems are we using and what sort of things inside of a CRM system do we have that can help you generate more referrals, like sending out a monthly topic and putting that through that system, and then making sure that you're not just throwing everything into what we would like to call a house account, that if you have somebody, a referral partner that you're consistently working with and sent you quite a few referrals, that you were putting them in their own accounts to themselves. So you're able to track how many referrals a month, a week, a year that you're getting from them. And what is the ROI?
Yes, that's super important. We should get more into that later about the return on investment. With the CRM tool that you use, if it's one that's popular, like a Salesforce or another that people might know, maybe you could tell us which one. Some companies might have a custom designed CRM, so it might not have a name that people are familiar with. But within that CRM, when I'm working with clients, I'm often helping them to figure out what's the premise. First, get everybody into that system, not just the clients and the prospects, but also the professionals, so that everyone's in one place. And then with everybody in one place, that, let's say John Doe, the guy that works on your team, knows that's prospects, clients, past clients, and professionals, all the above. Then to have some sort of a ranking prioritization system, which has to do with predicted return on investment in the future. In other words, with a certain person, he might want to invest a lot of time, and another person, he might want to invest a little time. Certain person, he might want to talk to more often and less often. Certain person, he might want to prepare for more. So that ranking system really helps John determine who he should invest time into. Tell us about what system you're using and how you all encourage John to rank and prioritize his referral sources.
So our system is proprietary to USI, right? It is built for us, but it's built off of Microsoft Dynamics. So, a lot of people use that system. It's just specific to our industry, specific to our company. It was what we use, and it was built for us. Within that system, once you put in the contact, the prospect, or the lead, you're able to rank them. Like you said, we use a stoplight scenario, right? So green is go. That means you have a high probability of closing them within the next, however you want to set that, 60 days to 90 days. Yellow is medium, so you have maybe a 50-50 chance of closing. And then the red is 10% or less. I think of closing new business similar to recruiting new candidates and new talent. Like, it might not be the right time for them to move, but never discount them. It's never a dead lead. It's always going to be there, because in our line of business, if you own a vehicle, you're always going to have insurance, right? So push them out into that red zone and follow up with them in a year, or start drip marketing on them with monthly topics of the month or something similar to that.
Let me ask you about a different line. You were talking about the green, yellow, red as a following up with a prospective client. So if John's on your team and he's got a prospect, green, yellow, red to follow up with that prospect. I want to focus a little bit more, though, on the referral sources. In other words, his prospect and his referral source may not be the same person. Let me give you an example. In insurance, maybe somebody who's an accountant, they themselves may not be a prospect or a client, but could be a good referral source. So I was wondering if your system, your CRM, has any form of a ranking and prioritization for the referral sources themselves. And how do you get John on your team to rank and prioritize his referral sources?
So we don't necessarily have a ranking, I guess, for the referral sources. What we do is we carve that out into its own group. So if you have John Doe wealth advisory firm that is sending you all of these referrals a month, what's going to happen is it's going to automatically push itself up to the top because you have all these referrals underneath it. And so it goes based off of the contact of the referrer and how many they're referring over. And that kind of automatically ranks it just based off of the numbers. But, we rank our prospects at high, medium, low, not our referrals at high, medium, low. We could do that. That's a great tool that we could maybe implement. We just don't do that now. I think it's just up to the producer to kind of look at the ROI, and the person you're getting the most ROI out of is your number one, and so forth and so on.
Great. Well, maybe there's an aha moment for our audience listening to this that they too might have. I find this to be normal, right? There is a ranking and prioritization system for prospects, and green, yellow, red is a good one, a common one, or hot, warm, cold, or A, B, C, D, or 1 through 10, some sort of ranking for prospects. But what a lot of companies don't have is a similar ranking tool for the referral sources. You can imagine if instead of a CRM, you just had a simple spreadsheet, and every human, whether they were a client, a prospect, or a referral source, would be a row in that spreadsheet. And then you'd have 2 columns, one where you could rank A, B, C, D as a revenue source, like the prospect ranking, and then another column that would be A, B, C, D as a referral source and how much time to invest into them there. So that might be something, I don't know if there's a certain administrator within your company that's responsible for adding custom fields into your custom made CRM software, but adding a field like that might be a great opportunity to have more conversations around, well, okay, now we've got this custom field for A, B, C, D as referral sources, or maybe even use green, yellow, red for referral sources too. So it's not a new concept for them. And then what is it that makes someone an A, B, C, or D? How do we decide how much time and energy to prioritize? That's probably already part of your discussion, but maybe you could make something that's part of a discussion about how to prioritize referral sources into something that's now part of the tool and therefore part of the system. I'd love to hear your thoughts about how you train people to prioritize their referral sources.
So I think you have to go back to the basics. Just because you meet somebody doesn't mean they're going to be a referral source for you. And so what is a referral source? Is it somebody who sends you 1 prospect a year? Or is it somebody who sends you 15? And I think that is something that an individual needs to manage, because for me and my team and how I coach them is just because somebody sent you their uncle or their brother doesn't mean they're a referral source, right? They become a referral source when they consistently are sending you stuff, or they're sending you more than, 2 or 3 referrals that are substantial. Are you getting referrals from a wealth advisor or a law firm or an accounting firm? Like, there's different ways to monitor them and to look at what's being sent over, because we live in this data-driven world. And so somebody who sends you 3 referrals that consist of $300 in revenue is not going to be a high priority when you're comparing them to somebody who sends you 3 referrals that is $300,000 in revenue. It depends on the person, on how they want to monitor that or prioritize their referral source, but then also making sure you have clear definitions on how do you define somebody as a referral source. So it's up to the producer and how they want to drive that process. But for me, don't spin your wheels trying to get referrals from somebody who's got 10 other partners that they're working with. Put them lower on the priority list.
You raise a good point about the prioritization of a referral source based on not just quantity of referrals they send, but also quality. Let me divide that a little bit and get your thoughts. So I often talk about with clients is the idea that quantity is the simple way. Either the referral source sends you 1, or they send you 10, or they send you 100. It's a number, really simplistic to track how many referrals someone sends you. Then it also has to do with speed, which is connected to number. So someone who sends you 10 referrals tomorrow is different than someone that sends you 10 referrals 10 years from today. So the number is the same, but when? So the speed is connected to quantity very closely. Then you've got quality, and there's at least 2 ways to look at the quality of your referral source. One is the quality of the people that they send to you. So people that are qualified prospective clients who have the money to pay for the insurance premiums and have the need to have something insured on their personal lines, and then who are open to talking with you, that you can reach them, that you can communicate with them. That's the quality of who they refer you to. And then secondly, within quality is the quality of the way they make the introduction. If your referral source, let's say John, sends you a referral and says, hey, call USI if you want to, that's barely a referral. That's just a mention and the lowest level of referral. Whereas if Jane's a referral source and she's walking the person in with all their paperwork that they need and their checkbook ready to pay the first month's premium, and they've said great things about you and your firm and handled any objections for you, well, then that's on the opposite end of the spectrum. Someone who's been a great referral source because of the way they make that introduction for you. So there's a lot there to unpack, right? The quantity of referrals, the speed of referrals, the quality of who they introduce you to, and the quality of the way they make the introduction. And a lot of that's tied to judging the referral source in a few different ways. Who they know, in other words, we take the phrase center of influence. Well, who are they the center of? And then the other word, influence, how influential are they? A person that no one listens to might not be a good referral source. A person that everybody trusts and they do what they say, that's a better referral source. I'd love to hear your thoughts about judging A, B, C, D, let's say, or green, yellow, red referral sources, and how you would train people on the team to determine how much time and energy to invest into somebody as a referral source.
Well, I think you have to get real intentional on who is your target client. Do you want the mass market, or are you looking at just high net worth individuals? And so here at USI, our target market is high net worth individuals. That is very layered. There's different levels of high net worth, and then there's ultra high net worth. And so going to your referral sources and saying, here's my perfect client. I'm working within this scope of level of wealth or level of assets, or however you want to define it. And then making sure that that is who that they're sending to you. So if you've got somebody who you're very clear and intentional on, this is the target client that I want, and they keep sending you stuff that doesn't fit that target client, either they don't understand or they don't have those types of clients in their centers of influence. So that might be the time to move on to somebody else who is in line with who you are looking for. And you got to have the same outlook, the same mindset, the same values. Because a lot of times you meet people and they're transactional and they just want to write a policy or write a client and move on to the next. That's not our model. That's not how we do business here at USI. We are very purpose driven. We are very educational driven. So we want to make sure that we get the right clients in the door and that we're able to refer those clients out to people who have the same set of values as us.
So we'll make John Doe now the attorney. We'll call him the referral source. But just judging him as a referral source, and we're going to rank him green, yellow, or red. How much time and energy should we invest into John as an attorney, as a referral source? I'll separate it into two things. One is motivation, which is what does John see as in it for him? He may want to refer you to someone because all he really wants to do is retain his client. He may want to refer that client to you because he wants that client to refer business to him. He may want professional introductions from his client. He may want his client to introduce him to, let's say, an accountant or a banker or somebody like that. So he may be motivated to refer this client to you or your firm, not really from what he wants from you and your firm, but really what he wants from that client. And I think that's often overlooked. Some people would think, well, if he refers to me, he wants me to refer back to him. That's probably true, but it's a little simplistic. He may want something from that client, more money, more introductions to professionals, more referrals to prospective clients from that client, and then also consider that he may want that from the person who's working at USI. So that's the motivation piece. What is it that really John wants based on his personality style? Does he want to feel, if he's an amiable, safe, if he's a driver in control, if he's an analytic to get it right, if he's an expressive to feel unique? His personality style will also go to his motivation. And then there's the second piece, which is the justification. His justification has to do with what does he think about your products and services. If he thinks you're great, he has high justification to refer business to you. If he doesn't even know what you do or thinks you do a bad job, then he's got the opposite of justification to refer to you. So motivation and justification to refer are really two different things. And a lot of times, especially if you have somebody in USI who's a new person to the team, they might not realize that there are these two separate ways of looking at John as a referral source. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you train these USI professionals across the country to think about the motivation and the justification of their referral sources.
Coming to the table and setting the expectations on what are you trying to get out of this? What is the value add for both of us? You know, for insurance professionals or risk managers, we are a value add to a lot of people, and we make them look good. That's the motivation. We're here to make you look good. The justification of it, I would lean in the education piece of it. You don't know what you don't know. We're here to bring something new to you and to teach you something. And I hang my hat on always by saying USI is an education company, because that's what we are. We educate people on how to buy insurance and what they need, and then we place the policies secondary.
There are topics I cover with clients about what I call referral stories of success. In other words, any person in a company listening would say that they could tell you about what they did for a customer or a client. And that would be like a case study or an example of what you did for a client. A referral story of success takes that and adds in the referral source to the story as well. So in other words, instead of saying, here's the policy that we provided to Jane and why it was good for her, we instead are going to say, here's John who gave us the referral, Jane, who was the client, what we did for her, and end the story with the benefit for the referral source as well. So essentially, a referral story has two characters in it that are getting a benefit. The client, of course, and also the referral source. And the idea is if we can tell these referral stories to people, we can teach them how to be not only a client, but we can teach them how to be a referral source, how to make referrals for us in the right way by telling them about how someone else did it, why to give us a referral by telling them about the benefit that some other referral source got. I was wondering if there's any of that in your firm where you're coaching and training your internal USI folks to tell stories about other referrals that they've received so that the listener can recognize, oh, I could see myself being in that story. I could be a referral source.
I think, case studies in any industry is really, really important. For me, if I'm just using my personal history and my personal story with referral sources I've had, I'm here to make you look better at your job. You work really hard to build wealth for your clients. I work really hard to protect wealth for your clients. But I also have clients that need somebody who knows how to build more wealth for them. You have to go back to the basics. You have 2 ears in one mouth for a reason. And I think it's all about listening to what people's needs, wants are. When you're telling the story, you're basically regurgitating what they said that they needed or they wanted, and you're putting it in terms that is connecting you into that story, the connecting piece of what you did for them. And then in return, the output is XYZ. Just to use an example, how I met you came from somebody that I sit on a board with. I talk about insurance all day long in some of our board meetings and managing the sales team. And this person was like, you got to meet Jeff. You just got to meet him and talk to him. He's got this wonderful podcast, and I think it would be great. You'd be perfect for it. Through this, I'm connected to somebody on a board who referred me to you. And through your podcast, now I'm branding myself out to all of your listeners. And through this, I have a referral for you that sits right down the hall from me that actually wrote a book on the referring system and how do you get more referrals. Everybody's connected and telling those stories, but quantifying them too is really important. And unfortunately, I can't quantify this just yet, but I'm sure I will be able to here shortly.
I love it.
Going on your podcast may have gotten me 6 referrals in the next year. And I could be sending you 6 referrals in the next year of people that I think that you should really speak to. I think it's all about networking. It's all about listening and understanding people's wants and needs, and where do you fit in and where can you connect them to make that work.
It's really, you have to ask and listen. If you're trying to get referrals from, let's say, John Doe, the wealth advisor, you'd ask him about, John, tell me about referrals that you've given in the past to other, let's say, legal professionals or tax professionals or insurance professionals, stories where it's gone well for you, stories where it didn't go so well, and listen very carefully to what he says about his prior referral relationships where he was the referral source, and hear in there, what is it he really wants when he sends a referral? Is he looking for referrals back or professional introductions, or sometimes people want monetary compensation for referrals? The last thing we'll talk about is the tracking. If you've got a whole group of people that you're leading on a team or training nationally, we of course want to hold them accountable to do some of these things. So a lot of times companies won't really track anything but the results. So in other words, they'll surely track how many sales somebody made, or if it's a financial advisor, how much assets under management they've gained, or if it's a lawyer, how many new clients they acquired. The results they will track for sure, but they often don't track anything about the activity that leads to referrals. So how many times you've told a referral story, how many introductions you've made to these professionals of other professionals, how many times you've actually asked for a referral. This kind of tracking of activity that leads to referrals. What do you train people to do, or train leaders to do, to hold the actual producers accountable to implement this activity?
We are a heavy metrics driven organization, and so we track everything. If you pick up the phone and you call someone and they don't answer, that's tracked. If you pick up the phone and they answer, that's tracked. If you set an appointment, we want all that data so we can understand where you're spending your time and what the ROI is. The revenue, that is secondary to all the activity. You have to do the activity before you can get the revenue. I think that missing the boat on tracking that activity is hurting organizations. And we may not track it as in actual specific details of, this is the value proposition I gave this meeting. This is the exposure solutions that I gave this meeting. We may not be in the weeds on that type of data, but we're definitely tracking how many times are you talking to them? How many times are you getting in front of them? And what are your proposals? So if you're bringing a proposal to the table, or if it's just a lunch, if it's just to get to know you, and how long is it taking from the first call to the first booked piece of revenue? That is big, because if you're sitting there spinning your wheels constantly on a referral source that is not sending you anything for a year and a half, but yet you're calling them once a week and meeting them for lunch once every other week, it's time to pivot.
Some larger firms like yours are doing a good job tracking using data analytics. And I would say I'm here to advocate that even a small company, even a solo practitioner, lawyer or accountant, they can do this too. They can track their activity levels to have correlation to results, tracking how many times they tell a referral story, maybe write 10 of them and track how many times have I told one, how many times have I made an introduction for someone, how many times have I asked for a professional introduction, and how many times have I actually asked for a referral. Who do you think I should talk to that should use my service? Tracking that kind of activity can be almost mind-blowing in terms of its productivity. So we're wrapping up our last moment here. Love to get your final thoughts and reflection on being on the podcast, and anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it. It's good to always do these things and have these conversations, because I always have a takeaway and learn something. I appreciate you doing this podcast for everybody to hear. And hopefully, as a nation, we can grow to develop better referral sources.
Thank you so much, Thea. And I hope you'll take a look at some of the other podcasts we've done and are going to do. And we'll continue to interview people in legal, financial, tax, insurance, wealth management, banking, leaders of firms, leaders of professionals who are responsible to help others do a better job in generating referrals. And that, in a nutshell, is the Referral Navigator Limited Series podcast. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks again. Bye-bye, everybody.